and just like that, Honjo was part of the city too. And as it turned from farmland into a town, the people surrounded it with man-made rivers and crisscrossed it with canals and waterways. Ran those prevent flooding? That's what I was told. They were, but that's not all they were for. Their other purpose was to contain all the corruption that had built up on the far shore and stop it leaking through to our side of the Great Divide. Officially, they were a physical barrier, but unofficially, they were a spiritual one too. So, if I have this right, are you saying that Honjo is a place where the real world meets the afterlife? Exactly, that's why the rite of resurrection is here, rather than anywhere else, I'm sure of it. And it's probably why the seven mysteries and their curse have survived to the modern day. And I guess that would make the spot we're standing now right over the water, the border between life and death. If there ever was a place where bringing back the dead might be possible, I reckon it's here. It's funny that you mentioned praying to the river. That might have done more than you think. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Just thinking aloud, ma'am. Hmm. Well, it's a nice thought. Oh, that's right. There's one more memory I have of this river. Do you mind if I tell you? Go ahead. Must been about 20 years now, when I was still a schoolgirl. Back then, the Sumida River was much filthier than it is now. It was full of garbage and industrial discharge. It was scummy and slimy, and it stank. You could look out over the water and see dead cats and dogs and pigeons just floating. And one day, among all the filth and garbage, there was a piece of my missing classmate's hand. What? It was almost a miracle when you stopped to think about it. What were the chances that someone would find a part of her that was still recognizable? And that although everything but the palm had rotted away in the water, the part that was left would have an identifiable scar, and that they could tell it been a murder from the blade marks on the bone. Wait, are you telling about the Nijima murders? So you have heard of it? I'm impressed. I assume you were but an elementary schooler at the time. I wasn't really aware of it then. I only heard about it after the fact. I had no idea the victim was a classmate of yours. To be honest, it was all a bit of a blur. A wave of chaos just partying around me. Something like that. They said the rest of her body must have sunk to the bottom of the river. They combed the riverbed, but they only ever found pieces. Everything else must have rotted and flowed out to sea. Afterwards, I heard that all the divers who had been looking for her fell ill. A sorry story for everyone involved, huh? It's funny, everyone figured the river's filthier already, so one more piece of garbage won't hurt. But every little bit makes it worse. It's a vicious cycle. I know it would I wouldn't want to go rooting around down there myself. That's right, which is why the riverbed is the last place anybody would go looking. Also, was the killer thinking, I suppose. The times were changing quickly back then. Things were confusing. Everyone seemed to be in a hurry. Young people were moving to Tokyo in droves, some even ran away from home to make it in the big city. And they made easy targets for bad people. A lot of them ended up disappearing without a trace. You see, back then, if you chopped a body up into tiny pieces and threw it in the river, it would rot quickly and discreetly, and think and sink to the bottom, never to be seen again. Are you saying that what I think you're saying? They arrested him shortly after. Fumichika Nijima, the man who killed my classmate and cut her one in pieces. He was so methodical about it, it couldn't have been his first crime. And people began to wonder how many other girls he'd murdered the same way. The police never found any evidence of other murders in the end, but the river knows the truth. How many corpses has it swallowed up over the years, I wonder? That same thought spread through everyone's mind and they started to avoid this area. So really, the river has been ranked with corruption for decades now. Or at least that's how it seems to me. Well, was that interesting? Well, I can see why you don't have any good memories of this river. With all that darkness lurking beneath the surface, there's no reason that you would. Still, if I may, ma'am, I'm surprised you know so much about the Nejima murders. But how could I not? After all, I was the one who found the hand. The police actually wrote me a thank you letter. They said it was only thanks to me that they managed to bring Nejima to justice. That was the only time my father ever said he was proud of me. Oh, I guess it just wasn't the killer's day. Sometimes I wonder if he resents me for it. Oh, noch was trinken? Viel Gespräche heute. Muss ja schon auf der Arbeit so viel sprechen. Kann ich noch mal da reingucken? So to me, I have nothing about awful memories of it. Okay. Jetzt haben wir es auch fertig. Da irgendwo ein Sticky. Ein Sticky. Ein Sticky. No, nothing of it. Please, go ahead. Alright then. I've been poking around places connected to the 7 mysteries looking for conspirators, and I think I found a few candidates. First, a tall man I ran into a Kinshibori park. I asked him for directions, trying to probe him a little, but he turned the question right back around on me, and he was out of there the second he figured I wasn't what he was looking for. I got the sense curses were nothing new to him. I'm about 40% sure he's a conspirator. And then there's this middle-aged guy I saw on South Barigisui Street. There's no question about this one. He had one of the curse stones in his hand. He had a nervous air about him, too. It was clear he was up to some shady business. Gathering soul tracks, I bet. He'd make a good target. Next up is a pair, a young man and woman I saw around Ryogoku Bridge. This time the man came up to me and asked me flat out if I was a conspirator. I told him I didn't know what he was talking about, and he backpedaled and left. Looks like they lurk around there often. Looking for kindred spirits would be my guess, though it didn't seem like they were quite working as a pair. Gathering soul tracks in the group might be a decent idea if you could make it work. But with things being how they are, it's got to be hard to find folks on one can trust. And they've got press though. I don't know what their deal is, but I'd like to find out. Last is 2 detectives I've seen sniffing around. The police are involved? Not necessarily. A body turned up in a local park a few days ago, so they might just be looking into that. Still, the park's got ties to one of the 7 mysteries. Might be it was a curse that did the guy in. And if they are sending in detectives from the head office, then something's got to be up. How do you know where they're from? Let's just say that when you are in this business, there are some faces you get to know. Anyway, that's everyone who's caught my eyes. You found all of them in so little time. I really did hire the best. It's all in the name, ma'am. Richter Kai, PI. No, wait. Make that Richter Kai investigator extraordinaire. An investigator extraordinaire? Is that why you can dress like that without drawing attention to yourself? You bet. An investigator in extraordinaire can blend in like a chameleon in any outfit. Well, that aside, the middle-aged man and the young couple sound the most promising. Am I right? Whichever we pick, it's still too early to make a move. It seems like the curse bearers are less involved with each other than we thought. Plus, there are still others we don't know about. I say we hang fire and see how things play out. Once more bodies start showing up, that'll get the pot nice and hot. And once it's boiling, our chance will come. There's something I need to tell you. What's up? Well, that girl Michio Shiraishi, the one who was Shuichi on the day of the kidnapping, that's her. Well, she's dead. She's what? The student who committed suicide last week, that was her. I heard something like that had happened, never got this name though. Talk about bad luck. You finally get a lead, only to find it's turned into a literal dead end. Unless her death was the whole reason Jonuchi was so shaken up. He said she was going to curse him. Was he talking about her taking revenge from beyond the grave? It seems like we're back where we started. Not necessarily. The teacher knows and something, I'm sure of it. At the very least, I'd put money on him having something to do with Miss Shiraishi's death. That's why he's so scared of being cursed by her. I see. And also, something tells me he knows more about your son's kidnapping. In any case, I think I've got a good idea of what he's hiding. Call it a hunch. A hunch? Well, more of a theory. Care to take a guess? I can guess. I can't say you're certain, but... What if Mr. Chonuchi silenced Michio Shiraishi with blackmail? What do you think? Exactly my thinking. Chonuchi knew about Miss Shiraichi's connection to the kidnapping, and she used to that blackmail her into doing his bidding. He made her feel so trapped she took her own life to escape. That's my read on it. How despicable. Well, it's just a theory. Right now, I think we need to have another chat with Mr. Chonuchi. Kann ich denken? Standing around is the last thing I want to be doing right now. This is my only chance to bring back my son. I can't afford to fritter it away. Something wrong? Not really. It just struck me. It's been 20 years since the Nejima murders. So it has. Not to spook you or anything, but I thought you might be interested in knowing. Hmm? Life in prison doesn't always mean life. there's precedent for first-time offenders being allowed out on parole after 20 years. Only if they're found to show remorse and the desire to reform their lives, of course. That's right, I'm impressed you know so much. Still, it's hard for someone with a criminal record to reintegrate into society. I hear they've been trying to fix that recently, matching inmates with jobs and accommodation. Oh, really? They keep an eye on them, of course, and make them report in for regular checkups. But to avoid discrimination, they keep the inmates' records a secret from everyone but their employers. They even give particularly notorious criminals new identities so they won't be recognized in the workplace. My, the way you put it, it's like you're saying Fumichika Nejima could be out on parole right now, back in society under a new name, with nobody any the wiser. It's possible. As it happens, little birdie told me about a big name-making parole a few months back. I don't know if that was Nejima, but our discussion just now did bring it to mind. I see. How unsettling. Now that you mention it, I just remembered something too. What was it? I was passing Komagata High School a little while ago when I saw someone. A janitor, I think, and I could have sworn he reminded me of Fumichika Nejima. Oh, he looked a little different after 20 years. Much thinner than I remembered, too. I told myself I was just seeing things. But perhaps it was him after all. So, what next? The big question now is what the rest of the cursed spirits are up to. Luckily, the Sumida River is a good distance from any of the seven mysteries. It's unlikely the other cursed spirits will come all the way here. I can finally have a moment to think. I see. All right. Okay, ich kann wohl nur Suspend machen. You cannot currently progress any further. Once your situation has changed, select Resume to try again. Pressing Suspend will return you to the story chart. Ja, aber ich kann nichts anderes machen, ne? Nö. Und dann soll ich nochmal dahin und Resume drücken. Da steht nämlich was. You are prompt to suspend the chapter here and progress Tetsuo Route until. Ah, ich muss erst Tetsuo Route machen. Also ich muss bei ihm dann weitermachen oder wie? Interessant. Okay, da switche ich hin und her. Das ist okay. Das ist sehr interessant. Ja, dann werden wir hier wohl erstmal aufhören, weil ich werde jetzt nicht hin und her switchen und ich wollte ja eh nicht so lange streamen. Ja, dann hören wir hier, würde ich mal sagen, auf. Interessant. Ja. Dann einmal Safety, Safety. Yessi, Yessi. Ja, und dann Return to Title. Yes. Dann bedanke ich mich fürs Zuschauen und wir sehen uns beim nächsten Mal, würde ich sagen. Gute Nacht. Ciao.